Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of The Book, our weekly show in which we are reading the Bible together and commenting on it and studying it to whatever extent we're capable. So thank you for joining us. Today we'll be reading chapters 5 and 6 and looking through them. As you can see here in the title, we're going to go through the generations that bring from Adam all the way to Noah. And then we'll see the first, communication that happens between Noah and God. And, the good old story of the ark being requested for it to be built because a flood is coming. And if you guys have seen previous episodes, which are available on YouTube, by the way, you will notice that there's a change in the format of all this because we're going with a different translation. We were using the Douai translation, and the English is a bit tough, a bit old, harder to get through. And requested to be built. I don't know. I wasn't very happy with that sentence either, but I just went with it. And then so this is the New American Bible, which is a much clearer English. This is the approved translation, the only approved translation in America for Mass by the Catholic Church. And things are clearer. So we're gonna get started here. We have some people on Twitch here like Chizo, who will see their interactions here in chat. And as you can see in the previous message that showed up on the screen, we had some technical issues before going live, but we are here now. And let's get started. All right, guys. We're gonna get started with Genesis chapter 5, generations Adam to Noah. This is the record of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. When they were created, he blessed them and named them humankind. Adam was 130 years old when he begot a son in his likeness, after his image, and he named him Seth. Adam lived 800 years after he begot Seth, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Adam was 930 years. Then he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he begot Enosh. Seth lived 807 years after he begot Enosh, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Seth was 912 years. Then he died. When Enosh was 90 years old, he begot Kenan. Enosh lived 815 years after he begot Kenan, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Enosh was 905 years. Then he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he begot Mahalalel. Kenan lived 840 years after he begot Mahalalel, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Kenan was 910 years. Then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he begot Jared. Mahalalel lived 830 years after he begot Jared, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Mahalalel was 895 years. Then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he begot Enoch. Jared lived 800 years after he begot Enoch, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Jared was 962 years. Then he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he begot Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah for 300 years. and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Enoch was 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was no longer here, for God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he begot Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after he begot Lamech, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Methuselah was 969 years. Then he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he begot a son and named him Noah, saying, "This one shall bring us relief from our work and the toil of our hands, out of the very ground that the Lord has put under a curse." Lamech lived 595 years after he begot Noah, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Lamech was 777 years. Then he died. When Noah was 500 years old, he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Genesis 6. The origin of the Nephilim. When human beings began to grow numerous on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of human beings were, and so they took for their wives whomever they pleased. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not remain in human beings forever, because they are only flesh. Their days shall comprise 120 years. The Nephilim appeared on earth in those days as well as later, after the sons of God had intercourse with the daughters of human beings, who bore them sons. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Warning of the flood. When the Lord saw how great the wickedness of human beings was on earth, and how every desire that their heart were conceived was always nothing but evil, the Lord regretted making human beings on the earth, and his heart was grieved. So the Lord said, "I will wipe out from the earth the human beings I have created, and not only the human beings, but also the animals and the crawling things and the birds of the air, for I regret that I made them." But Noah found favor with the Lord. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man and blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the earth was corrupt in the view of God and full of lawlessness. When God saw how corrupt the earth had become, since all mortals had corrupted their ways on earth, God said to Noah, "I see that the end of all mortals has come, for the earth is full of lawlessness because of them. So I am going to destroy them with the earth." Preparation for the flood. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Equip the ark with various compartments and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall build it. The length of the ark will be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight and finish the ark a cubit above it. Put the ark's entrance on its side. You will make it with bottom, second, and third decks. I, on my part, am about to bring the flood waters on the earth, to destroy all creatures under the sky in which there is the breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. I will establish my covenant with you. You shall go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife and your sons' wives with you. Of all living creatures, you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark, 1 male and 1 female, to keep them alive along with you. Of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of thing that crawls on the ground, 2 of each will come to you, that you may keep them alive. Moreover, you are to provide yourself with all the food that is to be eaten, and store it away, that it may serve as provisions for you and for them. Noah complied. He did just as God had commanded him. Well, damn. Once again, same thing happened like last week with the other 2 chapters. There's so much I didn't remember, or I never noticed, or I never even read. Like the details. It's like the story, obviously, I get it and I know it, but these details. And I'm like, what is this about? This is cool. Alright, so let's see. And it's good too that this one, I mean, let's see if these footnotes ever do anything. But this thing, first of all, I mean, we'll get to it. But the Nephilim, I'm like, what? I don't remember this part. Also, when it says, when human beings began to grow numerous on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God. So how beautiful the daughters of human beings were. What do you mean the sons of God? Like, is it a distinction of some human beings? I mean, let's see here. Other heavenly beings. Okay, so then it would be more like angels? And so they took for their wives whomever they pleased. Okay, I don't know what... Yeah, okay. Okay. In Matthew and Luke, they talk about this. Somehow. Alright. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not remain in human beings forever, because they are only flesh. Their days shall comprise 120 years. But this is right. This is... Oh, I see. Wait. Okay, so this is kind of the moment in which our years, become this. Because I'm like, we're reading this. I mean, which I did remember this part. These people live in like for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Interesting too, the numbers. I mean, obviously, right, the whole thing that they say with the Bible, like Old Testament, the number, I mean, the New Testament even too, but like in the Old Testament, especially like numbers being symbolic and stuff to represent different things, because, they're not meant to be accurate in that sense. But yeah, like it's, for example, the last one here, Lamech, the father of Noah, 777 years. It's like, also he's kind of like, well then when Noah was, and then also the fact that Noah had his children so late, right? Because everybody else is having their children at 182, it's like pretty young people, I mean, in their lifespan, that's like, I mean, if they're living, I mean, this guy is 700 maybe, so it's a bit less, and then there's that guy Enoch, right, which didn't last that long either. But this is interesting too, when he says, this guy didn't just die. He says, Enoch walked with God, and he was no longer here, for God took him. Why say it differently? And it's so, like, it's like, I don't quite understand. It's like, I mean, obviously, I don't understand a lot of things here, but it's like, this is, it's like, I don't get that part about the whole, it's like, Genesis, right? It's like telling me a story that's happened like hundreds and whatever, thousands of years ago, or whatever, right? But it's very detailed about things, it's almost like, okay, so it's these things that they would tell, like, I mean, generation after generation. But then again, it's like there's this distinction between like human beings and then these people, right? So these are like, I guess, the people that were passing on the word. So that's why we got details about how long they lived. But then again, are they, I mean, if they're not, they have to be specific characters, right? If they're not specific characters, I mean, I don't, like, how can they be, just like symbolic? Like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense for them to be symbolic and have like one after the other, have like a lineage. Now the years, all right, sure. I mean, maybe that's the thing too. It's like everything is possible. And it's like okay, but then all right, and if we take into account like the flood and all of that, it's like take into account Moses later on and all that. It's like, why not? But then again, it's all kind of so arbitrary. But then it's like almost at first, right, when I was reading it, and then it says, Adam was 130 years old when he begot a son in his likeness. I like this too, the fact that it's kind of like just forgets about Abel, Cain and Abel. It's kind of like he has those two, and then they just kind of mess the whole thing up. And it's like the descendants of Cain. So again, this is why also when I was reading the thing about, Adam and Eve, it almost seems like there's a distinction between, like, is there human beings that would not be like human beings or something? Like, what I'm saying? Like our race or something like that? Or because I don't understand. I mean, obviously how the numbers work. Like, I don't get it. How Adam and Eve, right? I mean, he says have many sons and daughters, right? So yeah, but still, like, if you're saying from Cain, right? First of all, right? So it's like Adam and Eve, and they have Cain and Abel, and they have Seth. So who did Cain have children with? You know what I'm saying? Because it wouldn't make sense that it was with Eve, right? I mean, but then it's like, then there must have been other women. And then it's like, where did they come from? Unless it's like, I'm assuming things are chronological. Yeah, I think that's what's happening here. I'm assuming that things are chronological. And maybe the whole thing is that, I mean, like Cain had children with his sisters that are born later. Because it says Adam lived 800 years and he got Seth. He had other sons and daughters, right? So, I mean, after Seth, he still has another 800 years in which he has children. So, and daughters. So then I assume that Seth married one of those daughters, and then I was just looking at Cain, but I mean Seth too. Yeah, that's again following the framework. That's the only thing that makes sense, unless the interpretation is that there would be like a non-divinely imbued human being. I feel like that's making a huge stretch here. Right, that I'm making a stretch that is not, substantiated on anything here. Like, there's no, I mean, it's just the language is so ambiguous. So it's like, it says, this is the record of the sense of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. When they were created, he blessed them and named them humankind. So it's like, it's so ambiguous. It's like, when he says that he created the male, is he talking about just Adam and Eve, or is he just talking about now a group of human beings? I think Adam and Eve are like, the royalty, to say, the leaders of humankind. The first ones, for sure, but not necessarily the only ones God creates out of, clay or whatever, like just out of, because it would only make sense too, to me, if we're going to look at it from the perspective of evolution, right? That it's like, okay, they're like, oh, how can you believe in Adam and Eve? And how can you believe in the story of creation if there's evidence, of this hominids and, all this, like, different human, like, remains. I mean, or you could consider, you know, this like ascendants, or what is it, ancestors of human beings, right? And it's like, then I will have to deny two things. One, either I can deny that those had no relation with humans, and then just like, you know, evolved chimpanzees or evolved monkeys, and then somehow, I mean, just to me, it's not that I have an issue with saying that, because again, look, if God is real, which he is, right? And then, you know, Jesus Christ, like, if all this, like all these miracles, the fact that he saved us, you know, it's like all of that is way harder to believe, in the sense like that's much more incredible in the literal sense of the word than this, right? It's like, oh, how we came to be. It's like, yeah, God could have just made the monkeys, they are similar to us, and they make this. But it's all, to me, like, why not just use that? You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, why does it have to be from clay? Like, I get the poetic aspect of it, and also because it would be kind of harder maybe to understand without a scientific mind. But in the same way, it's like, okay, how's the world created? And it's like, oh, it just goes like this, and then it's like the Garden of Eden. It's like, why couldn't it be that him doing this is like the Big Bang, and then all those wrongs? Like, that's much more godlike, in my opinion. It's like to just not consider like time to be a different scale. Like, can time completely be irrelevant? You know what I'm saying? Like, for him to do the creation every step of the way, just because to him there's no concern for time, and to us there's only the concern for the time in which we live. So it's also irrelevant whether it took 1,000,000 years to create Earth or if it took a second, because it's all the same. So to me, that's the point. And then same thing with, okay, Adam and Eve come from, or Adam and Eve, you know, humankind, whatever. I can at the same time believe in that, and believe that, you know, instead of like the clay, the poetic clay is basically the evolution from like whatever, a cell system or whatever the scientists. And I'm not saying the scientists, also because it's not all of them, it's a theory, right? And also, I don't believe all the whole theories. Like, I don't think it's natural selection, obviously. Like, I wouldn't believe it's a matter of just randomness. I believe it's like intelligent design. But that doesn't mean the process itself, which leaves a mark that you can archaeologically see an evolution, a change in a species. It's almost like it's too hard to deny it, and it's almost not, and it's also not necessary. We don't need to deny it. It's kind of like that whole thing of, oh, let me deny that the Earth is not the center of the universe, because that's like, how could we not be? It's like, it doesn't need to be, because you're looking at it from a human perspective. You're saying we need to be the center of gravity to be more important, whereas it doesn't have to be. Like, the fact that we're like orbiting around the sun doesn't make us less important than the sun. It's just a functional matter that just makes it easier for us to have day and night, for example, which was an important part of the experience, you know, of the creation, the garden that he wanted for us to have day and night. So then the way to make day and night is this intricate system of gravity and orbit, right? For example, as a way to express that. So in the same way, I'm thinking that intricate system of, you know, how our bodies is and stuff, it's like, it's a process of building through the evolution of different species and different natural processes of change, so that things are cohesive, and not only that, so that we are in connection with the world. We're not just, you know, implanted in there from outside as like with no sense of belonging. We would just be kind of alien. We would be alien to the world instead of being of the world. Like, that's why to me it makes sense when he talks about from the clay, from the dust, you know. He says it's not just from nothing. He grabs the dust of the earth and makes us from the earth itself that he's made. We come. So again, with what I was trying to get to here is that I can believe all of that. And again, obviously, I'm just trying to marry what this is saying, right? And how to understand it best to make sense of things. Because it says a lot of things that it doesn't make sense to me, which again, the attitude that one can have when you encounter something you don't understand, specifically in this case, I'm talking about when you understand something in scripture, you can either then use that as a way to doubt, right? Like you say, like, oh, well, this shows that scripture is a sham. This shows that, you know, this is all a lie, which is not as founded. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I have a belief in scripture because I have a belief in Jesus Christ, who relied on that same scripture, was divinely inspired, and then saints. There's like a tradition of saints and tradition of the Catholic religion and of people that have had their relationship with Christ that rely on this word that have verified as divinely inspired, and we've had it for thousands of years. So because of that, I trust it, and I mistrust my own understanding of it. I'm like, well, I just don't get it. So then by having that attitude, I can be like, okay, but that doesn't mean, let me just not get it. I'm just like, okay, what I gotta do is figure out how this makes sense. And I might not, I'm not saying I will, but a mystery is something that you continue to dig into, and then you continue to find out more, and it's never enough, and and it never really clears. But at the same time, it's intriguing because there's a lot of things here that I quite don't understand. So again, look with the years, right? It's right. So I mean, he has this sons. He has Seth, and the sons and daughters. Seth will be being the one that's kind of redeeming for Abel, right? And for Cain, Cain would be the one that takes away Abel, the good son, and the other one is just a bad son, so it's a corrupted son. So now Adam has a no son and a corrupted son, so now he needs one to kind of replace all of that, and that's Seth, right? And now Seth, we got Enosh and stuff, and then it's like they all kind of never get to 1,000, which is also like, again, it's symbolic, I get it, or whatever. I mean, or no, yes, I get it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, what part is symbolic? To what extent is symbolic? I would understand. I mean, by the way things sound, that there's some symbolism, because it's like, but then it's like, it can just be, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, was crucified at 33. Is that a coincidence? I mean, it's like just the fact that it was by design 33, and that the 33 would be symbolic doesn't mean that it's not actually was also 33. So it could be, that this guy here, Lamech, died at 777 years. To symbolize that eternity of the end of those eternal days, right? Same thing with this guy here, Enoch, right? 365, like a year, right? But it's like a year of years. So, but it's, I don't know. Why not? Saying, why couldn't it just also be that he lived 365 years? I mean, to me, it doesn't then, if we're going to believe the other parts, that part's like not that, it's also not that important. Like, it doesn't matter that much how much they live. If anything, it matters what it means, but I don't quite understand also what it means. So I guess we just continue to be lost. But let me see, what is this? Just like references to the thing. Well, what is this? Adam to Noah. The second of the 5 priestly formulas in part 1, this is the record of the descendant. This is the second of the 3 linear genealogies. In each, a list of individuals, 6, 10, and 9, ends in 3 people who initiate action. Linear genealogies, father to son, in ancient societies had a communicative function, grounding the authority or claim of the last named individual in the first name. Oh, so kind of like they're trying to connect Noah to Adam, right? That's why he's saying that at the title. Here, the genealogy has a literary function as well, advancing the story by showing the expansion of the human race after Adam, as well as the transmission to his descendant Noah of the divine image given to Adam. Correcting the impression one might get from the genealogy in 4:17-24. This genealogy traces the line through Seth rather than through Cain. Correcting the impression one might get from genealogy. Okay, so if we go to chapter 4:17. Cain had intercourse with his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Right, oh, yeah. Huh? Cain also became the founder of a city, which they named after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Ered. And Enoch became the father of Mehujael. Mehujael became the father of Methuselah. Methuselah became the father of Lamech. Interesting. So then Lamech took 2 wives, and the first one's Ada, and the second one was Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. His brother's name was Jubal. Zillah, Tubal-Cain. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Nama. Lamech said to his wife, yeah, I remember reading this before, but then Adam again had intercourse with his wife. She gave birth to a son whom she called Seth. What? Oh, this is, yeah. A son was born, his name was Enosh. Right, but then But then through this line, right, I guess we'll get back to that footnote, but we got Enoch. This is coming from Jared, not from Cain. Yeah, I don't quite understand none of this. Alright, 1 second, let me go back to here. Correct an impression one might get from the... I mean, it's what it says, right? You know, it traces the line through Seth rather than through Cain. Most of the names in Cain's line, Enosh, Enoch, Lamech, are spelled with variant spellings. Mahalalel, Jared, Methuselah. Oh, wait. Most of the names in the series are the same as the names in Cain's line. Enosh, Enoch, Lamech. Or, yeah. The genealogy itself and its placement before the flood shows the influence of ancient Mesopotamian literature, which contains lists of cities and kings before and after the flood. Oh, interesting. So in Mesopotamian literature, there's also an account of the flood, huh? Before the flood, the ages of the kings ranged from 18,600 to 36,000 years. But after they were reduced to between 140 and 1,200 years. So confused. If we look at numbers are much smaller. There are some differences in the numbers in the Hebrew and Greek manuscripts. It's not like this clarifies anything, but it gives some context to the idea that this was a common practice. So then, right, so then it's more of that? It's more of a legend then? It is more of a legend? And we are supposed to just drive the essence? Oh. Okay, I mean, that's easier to process somehow. It's also then, I don't know what part I'm supposed to draw from this. Apart of this, just, I mean, this is, I mean, again, yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be an explanation of things. It's just a record of our ancient tradition of explaining the world that we just have, and people take it very seriously, and maybe it's just a matter of looking at it like you would look at a very ancient piece of you know, of our legends. But it's, you know, it doesn't mean that they're not true. It's just that the truth is not in the details, it's not in the accuracies. So, I mean, it's good that at least, right, I guess because they wouldn't know. I mean, it makes sense, right? Why try to synthesize it? Because you wouldn't really know what part is the... to synthesize on what part you gotta leave. So just leave it all and you're like, okay, we just give you the context to know that, you know, these things are... So let's see here. Cain is the first in a 7-member linear genealogy ending in 3 individuals with an initiate action. So it's the same thing they were saying earlier, or well, later in the footnotes about genealogy ending in 3 individuals who initiate action, right? Which is the 3 sons of Noah as well. Other Genesis genealogies also end in 3 individuals initiating action. The purpose of this genealogy is to explain the origin of culture and crafts among human beings. So it is, yeah, something like, kind of like this gods, would we consider like a polytheistic tradition, right? In a polytheistic tradition, you have like different gods for different crafts, whereas here you have different descendants for different crafts, which actually kind of, I see now how things could start to shape up to these names, in which I'm like, why would it be relevant to have all these different names and stuff? And it's like, because you can ascribe to them different characteristics of the culture. The names in this genealogy are the same, some with different spellings are those in 10-member genealogy, and then with Noah, which has a slightly different function. Okay. Lamech's boast shows the violence of Cain continues with his son and has actually increased. The question is posed to the reader, how will God's creation be renewed? The third and climatic birth story in the chapter showing that his birth, unlike the other 2, will have good results. The name Seth, to replace, yeah. From this favored line, Enosh, human being, humankind. Oh, Enosh is a synonym of Adam. Authentic religion began with the worship of Yahweh. This divine name is rendered as the Lord. In this translation, the Yahwehist source employs the name Yahweh long before the time of Moses. Another ancient source, the Elohist, from its use of the name Elohim, God instead of Yahweh, Lord. So the pre-Mosaic period makes Moses the first to use Yahweh as the proper name of Israel's God, previously known by other names as well. Okay. So then here, when Seth has done Enos, and he had other sons and daughters. Enos was 90 years old. Kenan, so Enos is humankind. Alright, so then we go through this line, right? Okay. So this lineage that is basically, again, there are names that just represent an aspect in the culture. And but they have to have a place in the history. Because the moment you believe in one God, you gotta place these differences in human beings from one common origin. That common origin being Adam and Eve, even just Adam and Eve coming from Adam, right? It's like that point of origin. It's almost like there's this striving to get to that point of origin. Then, then you gotta kind of track things, and they serve that purpose, I assume, something like that. That's what I'm understanding from this. When he was 65 years old, right, this is when he gets to Enoch, which is the one that is like, there's a difference in the way it approaches this one. He had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Enoch was 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was no longer here, for God took him. Book of Wisdom. Enoch is in the important 7th position in the 10-member genealogy. Oh, wow, you see another thing. In place of the usual formula, then he died. The change to Enoch walked with God implies that he did not die, but like Elijah, was taken alive to God's abode. Okay? So he sends him body. So? Excuse me. This mysterious narrative spurred much speculation and writing, beginning as early as the 3rd century before Christ, about Enoch the sage, who knew the secrets of heaven and who could communicate them to human beings. Right, again, this is an interesting thing, which is the fact that by the fact that in our religion there's no other gods, it is through this people that we kind of have these different scales, I guess, of communication with God. Not scales, really, but just, I mean, I guess in some instances, scales, like, you know, Moses being, you know, high, and like Elijah and all this important, obviously Christ, but I'm saying beyond that, just kind of different aspects of the interaction of God with us, because it all comes from one point instead of being a division, like a division of gods, and each one of them having a realm of which they have power and dominion over, and they kind of fight each other. They're like kind of like independent from, I mean, even if you look at the mythology, they still also have to find some type of common origin, although it's like it's always starting from a struggle. You know, it's like there's a fight, there's some conflict, because it's the idea of it starting from one point that is already existing, being God. That's what then gives heat to these structures. Okay, I will communicate them to human beings. Alright, then we continue here. Methuselah. And walk with God. Right. Lamech, this one will bring us relief from our work and the toil of our hands out of the very ground that the Lord has put under curse. That's talking about Noah, right? The sound of the Hebrew word Noah is Noah. Noah is echoed of the word Yenahamenu. I don't know how. Noah, Yenahamenu. I mean, maybe I'm not pronouncing right. He will bring us relief. Oh, I guess like the way it's written in Hebrew. He will bring us relief is an echo, like a rhyme of Noah. The latter refers both to the curse put on the soil because of human disobedience and to Noah's success in agriculture, especially in raising grapes for wine. Oh, later on. Okay. Right, he's like bringing new life to the earth that is cursed. All right, got it. Makes sense so far. All right, now let's get to this Nephilim too soon. Well, let's see here. When Noah was 500 years old, he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem, yeah, the three individuals. Right, there we go again. The genealogies of the individuals who engage in important activity. Their descendants will be detailed in chapter 10. where it will be seen that the lineage is political, geographical, as well as ethnic. Yes, yeah, so again, now I'm starting to get this point of these genealogies as a way to track things back to an origin that would be Adam, which tracks to the origin of God. But it's not necessarily a representation of actual individuals. Well, not even necessarily, it's not a representation of actual individuals, but rather a representation of archetypes. But then you have characters like Noah, right? So it's like, I don't get it. Like, is that an archetype? I don't. No, it's like, that doesn't make sense. I feel like even Jesus mentioned Noah. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, there's so much I still don't get. It's like everything requires so much study, guys. Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, thank God. Like, I mean, the whole thing is just I got a base in the relationship with Christ, and this is kind of like enriching, and it's interesting. I'm not saying I'm trying to drive away from it, but it's like it's so ambiguous and like confusing, Origin of the Nephilim. Okay, what is this Nephilim thing? These enigmatic verses are a transition between the expansion of the human race, illustrating the genealogy of chapter 5 and the flood depicted in chapters 6 through 9. The text apparently alluding to an old legend. Okay, so then I'm seeing kind of a bit of that too. It's like I'm reading just this text. I'm reading like the synthesis of the synthesis of the synthesis, right? And I'm like, oh, why is everything so ambiguous? Where are things coming from? But it's like, this is the synthesis of a very like long tradition of different disparate legends. So we go back to the fact that it's divinely inspired, and it's like there's parts, or the whole, or I don't know, or what to gather from it. You know what I'm saying? The text apparently alluding to an old legend shares a common ancient view that the heavenly world was populated by a multitude of beings, some of whom were wicked and rebellious. It is incorporated here not only in order to account for the prehistoric giants, whom the Israelites called the Nephilim, right, but also to introduce the story of the flood, with a moral orientation, the constantly increasing wickedness of humanity. Okay, so I guess the Nephilim would be more, because he's saying heavenly beings, but they're like rebellious, right? So then it would be more like demons, right? It would be like fallen angels that, pair with the humanity. So then I wonder, I mean, that like, because people sometimes when they say, oh, how can you justify the flood? But it's like, if it has gotten to the point in which, there's been, then what stops them? I guess it sets a different setup, because I think what stops them from doing it again, saying, why are there no Nephilim now? But I guess like those angels or whatever, those heavenly beings already came down and settled to have the Nephilim. Then it's like so then it's like, that's why the flood happens, to kind of like, let's clear all this mess. Because it's not even like, it wouldn't even be our earth anymore, right? Because the Nephilim would take over. I mean, they're giants. And they're half, they're half, demon, or half, a heavenly being. I was to introduce the story of the flood with the moral, right? This increasing wickedness leads God to reduce the human lifespan imposed on the first couple. Okay, yeah. As the ages in the preceding genealogy show, lifespans had been exceptionally long in the early period, but God further reduces them to something near the ordinary lifespan. Okay, yeah, all right. So it's kind of like this adjustment, because we are not correcting ourselves, which was, again, when we talked about the idea of when, we're kicked from the garden, and it's like, it's not a punishment, but a cure, a way for us to be able to freely get back to him. So it's like, I guess he's seeing, okay, things are not working this way, so we got to change the setup. And then the fact that, they have the heavenly beings get in the middle of things. So, okay, I can understand. The sense of God, the heavenly beings, as well as later, the belief was common that human beings have gigantic stature once lived on earth. In some cultures, such heroes could make positive contributions, but the Bible generally regards them in a negative light. The point here is that even these heroes, filled with vitality from this the semi-divine origin come under God's decree. In verse 3. What? In verse. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall bring all remaining human beings forever, because they are only flesh, shall comprise 120 years. So that decree here, was later, after the sons of God had intercourse with the daughters of human beings, who bore them sons. They were the heroes of all, the men of renown. Right, but they still... So I guess they did continue to do it in those days as well as later. It's just now that they have a different lifespan, but they're just like this mighty man, right? Okay. The story of the Great Flood. Oh, well, yeah, right. This would be this. The story of the Great Flood, I mean, I guess this will get a little bit ahead, but the story of the Great Flood is commonly regarded as a composite narrative based on separate sources woven together. To the Yahwist source, with some later editorial additions, are usually assigned Oh, I guess 6 and 7, and then different verses within that. The other sections are usually attributed to the priestly writer. Okay. To the Yahwist source, what would be the Yahwist source? There are differences between the two sources. The priestly source has 2 pairs of every animal, whereas the Yahwist source has 7 pairs of clean animals and 2 pairs of unclean. Okay. The flood water in the priestly source is the waters under and over the earth that burst forth, whereas in the Yahwist source, the flood water is the rain lasting 40 days and nights. In spite of many obvious discrepancies in these 2 sources, one should read the story as a coherent narrative. The biblical story ultimately draws upon an ancient Mesopotamian tradition of a great flood preserved in the Sumerian flood story, the 11th tablet of the Gilgamesh epic, and embedded in a longer creation story, the Atrahasis epic. Okay, so again, so I guess, yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if kind of this Genesis thing is more of, yeah, that's what it sounds to me. It's like the people of Israel, like our people, right? Making sense of the legends of old through the lens of the relationship with God. Not as much as this accurate account, but then again, it's also taught as if it's an accurate account. His heart was grieved. The expression can be misleading, as the heart in Hebrew is the seat of memory and judgment rather than emotion. The phrase is actually parallel to the first half of the sentence, the Lord regretted. Okay, so it's not, okay, so it's more of like, this is actually parallel to the first half of the sentence, the Lord regretted. The Lord regretted making human beings on the earth, and his heart was grieved, like his memory. Right, okay. Like, yeah, it's kind of remembering. So it's not a matter of emotion, okay. So I will wipe out from the earth the human beings I have created, and not only the human beings, but also the animals. I regret I made them. Human beings are an essential part of their environment, which includes all living things. In the new beginning after the flood, God makes a covenant with human beings and every living creature. The same close link between human beings and nature is found elsewhere in the Bible. In Isaiah 35, God's healing transforms human beings along with their physical environment. And in Romans 8:20, all creation, not merely human beings, groans in labor pains again awaiting the salvation of God. Yeah, I get that, like, human beings being in connection with their world. I mean, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, about the fact that, like, it makes sense for us to be part of this evolutionary process, for us to be embedded in the world and not just alien to it. But, like, carved out of the world, but still, it doesn't really address. Again, it does address it in the sense, like, the story itself addressed why he would feel regretful about the creation and stuff, right? the earth was corrupt, right? He's just trying to correct it, so then he will have to clean the slate and everything. God does not punish arbitrarily, but simply brings to its completion the corruption initiated by human beings, right? It just, things are gonna just come to terms. It closes that thing that, again, it's we talk about, the fact that God knows where things are gonna end, right? Whenever that, I guess when it gets to the point of, I guess that's how I would see it. When it gets to the point in which it's like, okay, anything after this, there's no chance, right? It's like he lets it work until there's no chance for things to get better. It's like kind of like that moment. I don't remember what part of the Bible in which, like, I think it's Moses. I mean, somebody's crying out to God so that he doesn't destroy some cities, right? It's like, oh, if there's one person that believes in you, it's like, oh, if there's 10, and it's like, what if it's just one, right? It's just like, and God continues to allow the city to be full of sin and corruption because there's just still one person that is trying, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I guess when that ends and there's nothing else, there's no hope, there's no sprout of something that can be saved or that would be able to flourish within that corruption, then there's nothing for it to be but to be destroyed, because there's nothing that's going to come out. It's barren, so you got to burn it. Not only just barren, but just corrupted, so you just got to burn it, because in itself it's only going to bring death. So I can see that. Like, I don't have an issue understanding that is just bringing to fruition the corruption itself. Gopher wood, an identified wood mentioned only in the connection with the ark. It may be the wood of the cypress, which is in Hebrew sounds like gopher and was widely used in antiquity for shipbuilding. Yeah, that sounds about right. Hebrew cubiform, in the distance from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger, about 18 inches. Right, the ark, right? The ark of the Babylonian flood story was an exact cube. Oh, there was an act in the Babylonian flood. Oh, interesting. Opening for daylight, a conjectural rendering of the Hebrew word sohar, occurring only here. The reference is probably to an open space on all sides near the top of the ark to admit light and air. The ark also had a window or hatch, which could be opened and closed. You shall bring 2 of every kind, 1 male and 1 female. For the priestly source, there is no distinction between clean and unclean animals until Sinai. No altar sacrifice until Sinai, and all diet is vegetarian. Oh, interesting. Even after the flood, the priestly one has no distinction between clean and unclean, since any living creature that moves about may be eaten. Okay, wait, what? So I guess the old diving vegetarian is right in Genesis 1. Verse P priestly has no. Take the minimum to preserve all species, 1 pair of each, without distinction between clean and unclean, but he must also take on provisions for food. Right, because he's not going to eat the animals, because there's only 2. The Yahweh is the source, which assumes the clean and unclean distinction always existed, but knows no other restriction. Right, the Yahweh says, I guess, again, this is compiled later, so they will be already under Mosaic law. So it would make sense for them to kind of make sense of things. For us, really, our ancestors to make sense, ancestors in faith even, to make sense of things that way. But knows no other restriction on eating meat. Abel was a shepherd and offered meat as a sacrifice. Yeah. Okay. Reference service, right. Just as God had commanded him, as in the creation of the world in chapter 1, and in the building of the tabernacle in Exodus 25:31. From the priestly source, everything takes place by the command of God. In this passage and in Exodus, the commands of God are carried out to the letter by human agents, Noah and Moses. Divine speech is important. God speaks to Noah 7 times in the flood story. Okay, so I mean, things make a little bit more sense now to me after the footnotes and stuff. I'm glad we're reading this edition because the other one, I mean, it had the commentary, but it was like, again, too dense. But all of this, it makes sense why it would be dense. It seems like it's a lot. You need a lot to kind of get through, to kind of understand what is going on here. But yeah, I mean, this is, I'm liking this, because even though it's very confusing, at least just thinking about it and posting the questions makes me have a better understanding of things. And yeah, that's a good thing. A better understanding. I mean, it's not even understanding, but just I can look at things in a different light now. And that's good. And because then we're going to have after this. And I think for the next one, we just read, let's see, Genesis 7. the Great Flood. Genesis 8, still in the Great Flood, right? Genesis 9, covenant with Noah. Noah and his sons. Table of the Nations. Tower of Babel. Descendant of Shem and Abraham. The story of the ancestors of Israel. Terah. Alright. I think Abraham called. Okay, I'm just thinking if we do 7, 8, 9 next time. Or just 7, 8. But I feel like maybe just me. God bless Noah and his sons and to them before. I mean, it makes sense to do maybe 7 and 8. We'll see. Yeah, probably just 7 and 8, right? We just did 5 and 6 here. Yeah, okay, this was nice. Alright, yeah, I'm not gonna, do this. But yeah, this was nice. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you liked it as well as I did. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about all this, if you are as confused as I am, and if you have answers, it would be great. If you have answers to my dumb questions, or if you have your own answers or your own musings. And yeah, I mean, this is intriguing, but I guess the internet will make sense of things, because I'm not gonna put the time, and I know that's on me. Like, I cannot expect to understand it if I don't put the time, but I have other things to do. But it's cool to at least grasp a little bit more of it, maybe, I'll come back at some other point and try to understand a little bit more, grab from the sources and stuff. But, it's the first time I'm reading in this more analytical way, a more studying way. So I hope you are enjoying it as well. And yeah, thank you for watching. And yeah, that's gonna be the end of this episode. And I just want to remind you, that as usual, we have these evening shows every weekday at 10 p.m. Spanish time, and Tuesdays, like tomorrow, we have live words, reading works of literature, and then on Wednesdays we have Spanish stream, which is works of literature in Spanish. We're reading La Vida es Sueño by Calderón de la Barca, and on Tuesdays we're reading Paradise Lost by John Milton. And then on Thursday, we have Divinely Human, our interview or conversation segment. And this week, we'll be having Father Evan, a priest from New York who streams video games. So that should be an interesting conversation as well. I've never met a priest like that, so I'm very intrigued. And then we have Friday Finance Friday with my friend Evan from Wreckfish Capital. We'll just be doing what I used to do professionally for investment banking, which is just equity analysis, like analyzing companies in the public markets and seeing them as investment opportunities. And yeah, that's it. And then on Saturdays we just play video games, and during weekdays in the mornings we develop Rosarium, the app we're working on, so check it out. By the way, Rosarium will be launching a landing page soon, so I'll probably put the link to it at some place in the future. So, and I'll also share in future streams so that you guys can be updated on the project and stuff. And thank you everybody here live on Twitch. And yeah, thank you everybody. And this goes to the end of the YouTube recording. So thank you everybody, and God bless you.